On a cold November morning in 2023, Anne Blackwood, a 71-year-old British woman, walked to a small cemetery in the quiet village of Steepington, Hampshire. She carried a tiny pair of flower-trimming scissors, just as she did every year, to visit the grave of her only son on his birthday. What she didn't know was that someone had been waiting for her there for hours. It was her former husband, Martin Suter, 68 years old, an engineer and former local election candidate. He had been sitting in the cemetery for nearly 5 hours, fueled by an old anger that had never faded. 20 years earlier, the couple had lost their son, Christopher, who died at the age of 15. Although the coroner ruled the death an accident, Martin never accepted it. Deep inside, he convinced himself that Anne was somehow to blame. The loss shattered their marriage, and they divorced in 2004, but the bitterness stayed alive inside him. As Anne knelt beside the grave arranging the flowers, Martin approached her. No one knows exactly what words were exchanged, but what happened next is certain. Martin pulled out a 12-inch knife and attacked her with shocking brutality. He stabbed her 19 times. Then, in an act even more disturbing, he grabbed the very scissors she had brought for the flowers and used them to stab her again. Anne collapsed beside her son's grave, where she had come only to honor his memory. After the attack, Martin calmly called the police and confessed. He tried to justify the murder by repeating the same accusation he had carried for 2 decades, that Anne had been responsible for their son's death. But in court, the judge rejected his claim completely. He told Martin that grief does not excuse murder and that nothing could lessen the horror of what he had done. Anne's family described the killing as evil beyond belief. Her brother said she had been a beloved school teacher, a kind woman who spent her life helping others, and that her murder had torn the heart out of the family forever. Martin Suter was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 27 years and 230 days behind bars. A punishment that could never bring Anne back, but at least wrote the final line of justice in a story where heartbreak, resentment, and tragedy collided.